Okay, today we're going to be going over 8.1, solving equations with rational coefficients. So to start off, we need to define the word solution, and I'm sure you've heard that before. And the book's definition of a solution is a value, and I still mess that up even on here, a value for the variable, and the variable, remember, is the letter. So a value for the variable that makes an equation true. So it's whatever that, x is that makes x plus 4 equals 6. Makes an equation true. So a solution is how you solve the problem. Now we've got inverse operations and equivalent equations. And I think some of you can remember that an inverse is kind of like the opposite, right? Inverse operations undo each other. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. The inverse of division is multiplication. So inverse operations are the things that undo each other. So that would be subtraction and addition, as well as multiplication and division. Equivalent equations are equations that have, that have the same solution. So they are equal to each other. They are equivalent. Equivalent is equal. So equivalent equations are equations that have the same solution. Inverse operations undo each other. So here it wants us to solve 4.2x equals negative 57.5. So first things first, remember when we were going 3 times x equals 3x. So 4.2x is the same thing as 4.2 times x. We want to get this x all by itself to figure out the solution. So in order to get x all by itself, we need to do the inverse of the operation. So 4.2 times x, its inverse is division. So we are going to divide by 4.2. What you do to one side of the equal sign, you need to do to the other side of the equal sign, and that you're going to hear me say for the rest of forever. I swear I say it probably 100 times a day. So what you do to one side, you do to the other. So 4.2 divided by 4.2 equals 1, and our x follows down. We know that we can write 1x as just x, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right away. We're going to bring down our equal sign, and negative 57.5 divided by 4.2, a negative divided by a positive is going to be a negative. And we get a really big, messy number that I am just going to write as 13.69. We'll round to the nearest hundredth because it is 690,476, ... Moving on forever. We can check our solution by plugging in that number back up here. So 4.2, times negative 13.69. And that will get us pretty close to the negative 57.5. That way we know we're right there. I apologize for putting this number in wrong so it didn't come out exactly correct. So we're going to solve another one together before I send you off on your own. So like here in this case, the negative 19.6 equals 5.6x. To get x all by itself, we need to divide by 5.6. So you divide by whatever the coefficient of the term is. Remember, the coefficient is the number that's connected to the variable. You divide by that coefficient. What you do to one side of the equal sign, you do to the other. So going from left to right here, we have negative 19.6 divided by 5.6. And that gets us a negative number because a negative divided by a positive is a negative. And 3.5. Our 5.6's cancel each other out. And so x is negative 3.5. We want to go back and check our solution. So we have 5.6 times, where's the calculator on this thing? Maybe this isn't going to work out like I planned. I'll just punch it into my calculator and you can punch it into yours, and we will just trust each other. So 5.6 times negative 3.5 gets me negative 19.6 on my calculator, and let's hope you get that too. And there's your answer. So now I want you to pause and try to do these next three on your own, and then come back and check with what I got. So once again, you're just dividing by the coefficient. So this negative 20.9y, we have to divide by negative 20.9. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Those cancel out. We get a y. We bring down our equal sign. Negative 250. Wow, I can't even talk right. Negative 250.8 divided by negative 20.9, and I'm just punching this into my calculator, gets me 12. To check my solution, I do 12 times negative 20.9 because I'm just plugging in that 12 for our y, and I get negative 250.8, so I know that I did that right. We're dividing by the coefficient once again. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Those cancel out, and we get an A equals. We do 217.6 divided by negative 13.6, and I get negative 16. Going back, to check my answer, I'm going to plug in the 16 here for the A. So I have negative 13.6 times negative 16, and I get 217.6, so we did that one right too. And finally, 323.4 equals negative 13.2z. To get z by itself, I divide by the coefficient, so I divide by negative 13.2. What I do to one side, I do to the other. 323.4 divided by negative 13.2. I know it's going to be a negative, because when you multiply or divide, negatives come in pairs. And we get negative 24.5. Bring down your equal sign. Your 13.2's cancel out, and you get z equals negative 24.5. Check your solution, so you go back and punch in the negative 13.2. We're multiplying that by our solution there of negative 24.5, and we come out with 323.4. So perfect. Now we've just got a little word problem here. Oops. Don't freak out about the word problem. Take a deep breath, relax, you will be fine. Our word problem is a drive-through safari charges $12.50 per person for admission. In 1 hour, the park had raised, the park had raised $675 in admission fees. So write and solve an equation to figure out how many people visited that hour. So they raised a total of $675. We want to know how many people came to raise that total of $675. If it was $12.50 per person, it would be $12.50 each time someone comes in. So $12.50 for one person, $25 for two people, continuing on. So 12.5 times the amount of people, so 12.5p, will have to equal $675. There we go. We got our first part done of writing an equation. Now we've got to solve it. In order to get p by itself, we have to divide by the coefficient. So we divide by 12.5. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So we'll have to divide by 12.5 over there as well. 12.5p divided by 12.5, those cancel out, and we get just p. We bring down our equal sign, and then we go 675 divided by 12.5 gets us 54. So what that tells us is that 54 people went to that drive-through Safari Zoo in 1 hour. See, wasn't so bad. I didn't die. We all worked out. Now I want you to pause and solve this one and try it on your own. So here it says a 1-year in-state camping permit for New Mexico State Parks costs $180. If the total income from the camping permits is $8,280 during the first day of sales, write and solve an equation to find how many permits were purchased. And we don't need that either, I don't believe. So our total number is 8,280. So we have an equals $8,280. Each permit costs $180. So it's $180 per permit. So 180 times P, which stands for how many permits that you bought. So 180 for one permit, 360 for two permits, continuing on. In order to figure out how many permits they bought in that 8,000 during that first day of sales, we need to get P all by itself. To get P by itself, we divide by the coefficient. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Our 180s will cancel out, so we'll get just P. Bring down our equal sign, and 8,280 divided by 180 gets 46. So 46 permits were sold in that first day. Now, we know that 1/4 y equals -8. In order to get that alone, we have to divide by the coefficient. But if you have a fraction that has a 1 in the numerator, so this only works if there's a 1 in the numerator, you can just multiply by the denominator. So as long as there's a 1 up here, this will work. If there isn't a 1, you can't do it this way. So since we have 1/4 y equals -8, to get the 1/4 to go away, all you have to do is multiply by 4. Because 1/4 times 4 will get you 1. So they cancel each other out. It's the inverse, it's the reciprocal of that fraction. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So we'll have to multiply by 4 over here. 1/4 times 4 turns into 1. So we just bring down our y. We bring down our equal sign. And then -8 times 4 is -32. When in doubt, check on your calculator. So you can do 1/4 times -32, and you get -8. So perfect, voila, exactly what you need to do. So you can go ahead and try these next ones over here. If our number is not have a 1 in the numerator, what you need to do is just multiply by the reciprocal, or the inverse. So we have 7 equals -1/2 x. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to times 2. What you do, or -2 even. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Since that number on the coefficient was negative, we need to keep this number negative as well. -1/2 times -2, a negative times a negative is a positive. Perfect. They cancel each other out, and we get x. Bring down your equal sign. 7 times negative 2 is negative 14. Okay, pause these. Try the next ones on your own. Remember, you're multiplying by the reciprocal of the coefficient. So the reciprocal is the fraction flipped, and the coefficient is the number connected to the variable. So multiply by the reciprocal. Pause it, try it. You don't have to input on the form because I did this a little different today. So we have 6/7 m equals negative 3/14. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the coefficient. So we're going to multiply by 7/6. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So these cancel out and we get just m equals. So now I have a negative times a positive. I know right away that's a negative. Don't type this into your calculator. Multiply your fractions. Relax, take your time, do that, because it's going to be easier multiplying your fractions and simplifying than it is turning up with all these crazy decimals. So 3 times 7 is 21, and 14 times 6 is 84. And I could have simplified when I started, or I can simplify now, and that simplifies down to negative 1/4. You can go back and check if you would like. For the sake of time in this video here, I'm just going to continue on. Now we have negative 9 equals 1/3 n. I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of the coefficient. Look at all these big words that we're using. So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Negative 9 times 3, negative times a positive is a negative. 9 times 3 is 27. We bring down our equal sign. 1/3 times 3 turns to 1. And so we just have n. And there's your solution there. And finally, multiplying by the reciprocal of the coefficient, since we have a fraction, we're going to multiply by 7/2. What you do to one side, you do to the other. A negative times a positive is a negative. Now I don't have to worry about our negative signs anymore. And we are going to just multiply straight across. 7 times 1 is 7. 4 times 2 is 8. And I can't simplify that down at all, so we're good there. 2/7 times 7/2 turns to 1. So we get just y. And there is your answer there. Now you are welcome to go on and try to do your homework. If you have any questions, try referring back to this video for examples. Check on your notes that you should have taken while doing this video. And feel free to email me if worse comes to worse. I am here to help you. I just don't know how well I can explain over email what you need to do. So good luck, and I will see you tomorrow.